Back on solid ground is a tale, a rather tall tale, of some 300 metres, involving a trip to Riglos in Spain, where we climbed the famous Los Malos rock formations as part of my partner's 30th birthday celebrations, where we accomplished reaching our summit, as well as successfully finding our way back down to solid ground. I start by explaining some basic information about rock climbing before going into the actual climb and the descent afterwards. For those unfamiliar with rock climbing, which involves a rock face and two people, ours will focus on lead climbing, where there is a preset number of rings on the rock face that two climbers make their way up. One person is the lead climber, and they're roped in, and they proceed to clip themselves the rope in as they go up. And the other person is responsible for keeping them safe and also feeds them the rope, and they are the belayer. And that was me in this instance. So you communicate clearly with, when you're far away, ready to climb? Yes, on belay, okay to climb. And that's very important, having clear communications. So once the lead person reaches an end point or the route, the second person then starts climbing to meet them. They are in effect on the rope working their ways up, which is a lot easier. But the lead climber is more at risk because in between clipping one point and then climbing to the next, there is a length of rope in which it is possible to fall, but then be caught on the last clip you're clipped into. So bear that in mind. But luckily, that wasn't a concern when we were climbing. But some lead climbs are shorter than others, and once you climb up a pitch, you usually climb down or get lowered down or abseil. But let me introduce you to Los Malos. You need to know two things. One, it is 300 meters in height in some places. Two, it's a huge rock formation. If you look at this picture, there's a little church at the bottom of the photo. And if you can't see it, wow, that's perspective for you. It's tiny compared to the rock formation. So our particular climb involved 4 or 5 pitches. So that makes up about 3 to 4 hours worth of climbing vertically, mostly. So on to our climb and the start of our venture, where we made steady progress because it was a very popular climbing location, lots of information on it, and there actually was already parties climbing up as well as parties behind us waiting to climb. One thing Mike didn't tell me as we were successfully climbing the pitches was at times how slippery he found the rock. This is called polished, because the sheer number of climbers wearing away the rock face, ultimately making it a bit like a shiny pebble. This is not good for climbing. I was oblivious of his nerves, which obviously would have made me more nervous. However, having spent a fair few hours climbing one pitch at a time and taking in the magnificent views, we were at times looking over birds soaring below us. It was quite spectacular. We reached the top, and it seemed like the difficult part was over. However, we hadn't realised that the path or paths down were not obvious. We assumed it'd be nicely clearly signposted this way, but it wasn't. So we looked this way, shrubs. We went over there, cliff face, and wondered how the heck we were going to get down. And where it was seemed busy before, people before us, they seemed to have vanished. But luckily, we encountered someone coming up after us, and we banded together to make our way down. There's no abseiling opportunity. It was a hike down. So we ambled, or rather, I ambled and followed them as they made their way, scrambling, hopping, and working our feet over rocks, ledges, and shrubbery. Again, what Mike didn't tell me as we were working our way down, as I was going from looking at my hand to my foot to my hand to my foot to making sure that my foot was being in the right place, my peripheral vision was very limited, and he didn't tell me that there were some sheer drops on either side of us as we were going down. I'm glad he didn't tell me. But by the time we ascended, daylight was fading and the sun began to set. Time was not on our side. But after about an hour, we finally descended the whole 300 meters and found ourselves safely back on solid ground. Our venture to Riglos involved being outside of our comfort zone, but learning that if you break down something huge into smaller steps, you can achieve some amazing results. So That was back to solid ground.